and welcome back. Today we are in the IXEG 737/300 found on the ekyt store. Yes, there has been a lot of criticism and such, but in the long run, in the beginning, the ekyt aircraft, if you try the add-ons, for some reason they just feel nice in the controls and such, and that's basically what I feel, and well simulated, and that's the biggest difference between what we have seen in the past in the explain.org store, that it seems a bit easy just to do something and release it, where for the ekyt store it seems that they have some quality standards and such, even though there are some aspects of that company I do not agree with the owner and such, but let that be, and I hope that he will not see on it from a negative side. I just tried over time to say how things are and how the community is looking at it, and of course there would also always be some skeptical aspects and such, and I do not like the whole basic line that is used. But that said, now we can continue, because I actually wanted to demonstrate the aircraft and see and show how solid the main aircraft is, because I have been very much annoyed with aircraft from explain.org store, as I have mentioned. It seems that anybody can release something, and of course you can. However, I just feel sometimes that for the money they want for the projects, and then they just make a new version 2 and forcing you to buy it, I really don't like that approach either. So there are bad and good things about both distributions, platforms, as you can say, or marketplaces, you can say. But that's just me. I just has a bad taste in my mouth that I actually spent a lot of money on projects in the past and such, as you may know from the records that I actually have been testing, of course, but also purchasing stuff, and then I really don't like when they start forcing you to do something, as I already bought something, so it should be my right to actually use it, as that's what I have been experienced with the explain.org store lately, that some developers are wanting to make a new version, and then it seems that they can't get enough customers, and then they just say, well, pull off the original files. Then if they want it, they are going to be forced into buying it again in a new version, of course, but that's not the way it should be, in my opinion. But that's it. I want to do this video because I want to show that it isn't that difficult to fly a Boeing, just as I actually would have done in the Airbus A319. However, I got the problems with that particular add-on and did not want to spend one new registration in order to try out the latest version of it, because I actually got it registered just before the latest version got released. I know they sometimes say they release a new activation key, but yeah, I have been running into those activation problems from time to time, and it's annoying to have to contact the companies and wait for some time for something that you already have paid for. So as well as I'm always saying that you can't build something that someone that really wants to get into it can't break, and that's what we see all the time from companies, and it's Windows, it's all, and that's the sad things about computers and those things. So so let's jump inside the cockpit. We are here, we are in the cold and dark status, and now we would get the aircraft from the cold and dark status to its full potential. Okay, we're going to the pre-flight page. We're gonna set a distance, and we're just wanting plenty of fuel, so 270 nautical miles, even though we are not going to fly that far. Set typical fuel load here is set, and apply settings. Then you would know that if the FMC was up and running, you would know that the aircraft more or less would reload and it gets away. Okay, and go to the ground service, as we want some ground power, as well as connect the ground air support supply, sorry, not to support. Okay, so let's get it going here. Ground power is available, and we would need to get this down and get the battery going here. Get some lighting on here and there, and we would require to actually start up the APU. And one handy thing, if you want to use the checklist, it can be opened here. You actually flip it, and then you can see references and such, and I think that you do, and you can just pull it away again. Okay, so let's start off with getting some ground power units here. Gonna close those and get the APU running. And I apologize, I really had some problems with my mouse, as you can see. And of course we would need some fuel pumps on here, else we won't get the APU running, of course. And just making sure that the aircraft is configured here for the main start as well. There we go. And ground power, batteries can be checked. But right now we can actually switch over to the ground power unit. APU. So now it actually is running on the APU instead of the GPU. So now we actually can go in and remove the ground power unit, and the light switched off, as now it is actually switching yaw damper, so that's actually ready to go. And then I want to get the FMS system going, so we would actually need to get up here in top. I have a problem with the mouse again, I apologize. It's all the way up here, and we would try to get it to ATT align. Let's switch it over to the left again. and the alignment light is on. Sometimes you actually set it for align and then to nav, but it should actually be right now. Get to the FMC here, and then we enter our current position, Echo Kilo Charlie Hotel. There we go. The reference, you can use that, or you could go to the GPS position, enter it, route page, Copenhagen to Aalborg. And now you would know from the Airbus that it has a timer that comes up telling you how long there is until it is aligned. In the Boeing we don't have that feature, we just have to wait, and in reality it doesn't make any difference as such, because it is done when it is actually done. So we don't have a lot to do there. Or is it here? You can actually see it 7 minutes. It could be that I have said something wrong. So it's interphone, bright, off, dim, white lighting here. Okay. And if you like, you can of course always just skip all this and take the pre-flight here from turnaround status or just ready to fly status. That's of course always an option. If you experience problems with the main cockpit here disappearing when you get into clouds, it's a known bug. Just unselect the draw vortices, then for some reason the cockpit is visible again. It's a problem that was introduced, can't remember in which version of an update for X-Plane 11, but it is quite annoying. Okay. Okay, and what we can do here for the flight plan is actually that we can go in and set up our departure to right. Just note that it is in a bit of another order if the aircraft is ready to fly when you get into this, because then you get to the pre-flight page, and we would get to that in a moment, because it could be that it has problems with actually getting that working. One thing that is very important here is to get this line up here and then insert it, so then it removes the line. Now I would do it in another way. If you go to the legs page, that's normally what you could use when you are in flight, because it has all the waypoints listed here. Then you can just press back up there, and then it would do the same. And that's a very nice way of doing it. However, if you want to delete a waypoint and enter another waypoint, you can just press the delete key, and there would be a discontinuity. or you can go in and say they want to fly direct. You can just go up and say back it, remove that, and then it will go to Mixi to the Aalborg VR station. Right now you have not a lot of information in here. That's basic because we have not set the aircraft yet. You can go to the pre-flight page, and in here you actually has to enter some information, and that's where, if you are used to the 737 NG by PMDG, you would know that in here you can just press the button. If you didn't know, you actually can just press the buttons and it would enter the data. Of course, for reserves and such, you actually have to do that manually, but for your zero fuel weight and gross weight, it actually is capable of doing that by itself. But it isn't that difficult, because you can just go in here after you have used it pre-flight to enter some fuel. You can get into the ground service panel here again, because in here you actually have the zero fuel weight that you just simply can enter. 73.4, as we are rounding up. It's always better to round up in most cases, of course, because other times it's best to round down, but since it is our zero fuel weight, it's best to get a higher value than a lower value, of course. And then you can see it gets close for the fuel. Reserves 2, I just set it for 2, it could be set to whatever we would like nearly. 99 is our cost index. We don't take it that serious about the fuel, as it's not us that is paying it. And we are climbing up to flight level 200 or 20,000 feet. You can enter both. Oh, not 200,000. And you can see it automatically set it for flight level 200. And one limits, we can do a derated takeoff. Don't require to make too much pressure on the engines. There's no need for it, as we got plenty of runway. In here, one thing I wouldn't tell you is that those values here would actually be reset if you enter it now and then did an departure or approach. I mean, if it's only for the departure, I can't remember, but I just say it because if you go in and edit those values, it would actually remove the values, so you would have to press them again. But here you actually can press them, and then it would just enter the data. So you can see you can't just press it, they has to be present in order to enter them. Whenever something is just the machine that has been setting it, it is in lower value. Sorry, it is displayed smaller. You can see a bigger size when I actually enters data. Now we can go to the next page, as now you can see it has entered the information here. And I can, if I want, or air traffic controller tells me to do something, I can go in and edit either the speed or the altitude or both. But that's very nice, because here if I want to fly to the Aalborg VR station and say, well, we should not exceed 160 knots, not more than 1 knot, of course, I'm editing, then I can just say 160 / and enter. Then you can see it gets bigger, and it indicates that it's manually inserted. 2000 is set. However, I could, if I want to edit something like this value here, you can say that, see that it actually says 2000 and above. Let's say that it should be only the altitude and not the airspeed I want to select set. I can just enter a / and then say 25 0, if it should be 2500 feet, and now you can actually see this inserted. But I could also go in and say a value if that was what I wanted to do, but I don't want to do that. Okay, so that's what you can do, and of course you can do both. You can say 250/4000 feet and enter it if that was what you would desire and that it would actually be calculated on. Okay, so pretty basic and simple. Got the climb page. In here you can set the restrictions. You can, if let's say air traffic controller gives us a restriction that it's only up to around 7,000 feet, or I could say 260 knots above, below 5,000 feet. I could enter that if that should be. So it can be changed as you desire. You can see you can change the parameters if long range cruise or whatever it might be. So that's something to know there. But in reality, and from my perspective, this is much more easy to operate than a GPS. It's much more easy. But that's just my opinion. Okay, let's get the aircraft up and running. And it isn't as difficult as you might think. It really isn't. Now I have to get into a nice position here and set it up. There we go. And now I'm just doing it in a quick manner, not following exact procedures, because I more or less know the main drill here. Okay, so let's start the right-hand engine here, and we would be doing that here. As we need to. I just have to get things right here. That's correctly set. And the right-hand engine is what we want to start. The throttle brake is set, and you can see nothing happens. Then it's nice to know that it's all down to pressure. And getting it into the ground start position, and then you can see it's running. Because if you forget about setting those parameters here right, it won't start because it can't start. But right now it is spooling up, and we can get it up there, and the engine 2 is starting just as we would expect. Here we go. The engine is spinning slowly and nice, and we can switch over to the generator for the second engine, and then we can go to the ground start position for the left-hand engine here, and you can see it's boiling up there, and we can give it this final spark here to start, and then it would come alive here and we can switch on the air from the engine number 2, the bleed air, that it rises normal and auto flight. There we go, and the engine is nicely up and running here, stabilizing itself, and we can switch over. As well as we can go up and switch on the position light that's already set. We can switch off the APU as it's not required anymore, and remember to set the air from the left-hand engine, and then we can get the packs running here to the auto position. There we go. So we got some air conditioning running to keep our passengers happy. Okay. Oops, that was not the menu I'm looking for. There we go. But now we are basically up and running, and would be able to actually get out to the runway and depart. You can really see here how difficult it is for me to use the mouse here for the values, but that's how it is. Okay, and now we can just start our nifty pushback. If I could just get rid of the main mouse there and the panel. It's a bit annoying that it is down there, since it is the same place where I actually has my plugins, but that's it. Now we are being pushed back and it has plenty of force. Let's just slow down, else the aircraft would be moved too quickly. And it is my plugin project here we're using. And one thing I've forgotten is actually activate my other project here that would make it possible to use one axis for either the tiller or for the rudder. That makes it more realistic. Okay, we can stop the pushback here and then start our main taxiing and switch on the taxi lights here as well as the local lights, and then we are taxiing nicely here, and we are taxiing over to the runway 22 right here in Copenhagen Airport, and we would set the flaps to the 5 position just as we entered into the FMS system here. Got around 18 degrees Celsius outside. Do note that it is very sensitive here, the axis for the tiller, and that's something that people has mentioned in the past, and I have to admit that when you don't have the rudder pedals it is quite sensitive. It wasn't a huge problem when I actually had rudder pedals, but here when I have just a joystick to control it all, it can be a bit of a challenge from time to time in some aircrafts. Also because you see it is so rough when I actually gives it an input. But that's it. Okay. I hope you are ready for our departure here out of Copenhagen Airport. I know we are up to around 30 minutes right now, and I've been talking a lot. However, things are taking its time, even though you try to make it as short as well as constructive as possible and not giving too many information, but still telling the things you would need to know. But yes, it takes some time, but if you start with the aircraft engines running, you save that bit of time. You actually just go in and plan your flight. If you don't want to use the VNAV and such, you don't really need to enter the information about the weight and all those things, as then the aircraft of course can't calculate the optimums for you. But if you don't use the VNAV and using more the old style of flying, you can actually start your own calculations and then say, well, I need to descend now and such. So it's by no means required to do all that work I have done now. I'm just trying to reach out for the most people and try to tell them that even it's a complex aircraft and such, it is not that difficult to actually operate it. Now we are here on the runway and we are just going to take off here. Set the front N1 limits, and here we go. Rotating. Here we go. Nice and steady. We are retracting the gear now. Gear that as well. And we are on our way out here from Copenhagen Airport. And we can get the gear to the off position. There we go, off position there. And now you really see those issues with my mouse. It seems that there are issues when I try to click somewhere down here. And first off, I actually thought that it might be something to do with Fly with Lua, perhaps, and my autopilot project, but it seems that that's not the case. Level change here. And the aircraft do its thing, and we can switch on the LNAV, and the aircraft would start flying our main flight plan here. However, air traffic controller wants us to leave their sector faster, so we can do this here, and the aircraft would make a turn. Do note that it tends to stop the turn when you do a new input to it. And that's basically quite realistic from my experience in real aircraft, where you also can see how it triggers the autopilot, and why sometimes it's actually better to just use heading select and such, as I have been mentioning in other videos and such. Also because now you can see, for some reason the aircraft has made this funny turn here and not just doing a direct. However, if I just press it again, I guess now we would get the straight line, as it's not a sharp turn anymore. So that way I can actually make a kind of cheat. And what I was mentioning before, for the old style calculation, we could do this. We could enter. I'm not sure if I actually can enter the main airport, because if I can, it would be pretty nice. Yeah, you can see I can do that, and then you can say, well, I need to start my descent, let's say around uh, 80 nautical miles from the airport, and now I have started it wrong, as I should just make this slash. I have to adjust. Here we go. That would be much better. 80. Then it would do a distance of 80, as we do not need a radial for this. That's not required to make a radial. Of course, I could make a radial to indicate some sectors where I need to be at given altitude, just like Jan has shown during the demonstration for the aircraft officially was released when he was making his demonstration videos. Now I'm starting to get a bit annoyed about the mouse here, and just to demonstrate that it is not my project, I can go in here and say, no, fly with Lua, go away. Now it is basically down to the basics here, but again, you see, I still seem to trigger it, even though it seems that if I trigger it down here, move my mouse up here, for some reason, sometimes, yes, there we got it again. That's for some reason more annoying in some add-ons than others. I just have to use fly with Lua, so I would need to enable fly with Lua again, because as we would get into problems when we want to land the aircraft. So fly with Lua. We got all scripts. There we go. The reason that I required was for the nose filter to work, but I see that by doing it this way, it has caused a problem that I did not was aware of, because normally I should load that macro, as you know. For some reason that's disabled this way, so right now I can't activate it, so probably I would have to make a safety feature to actually activate it, even though that was not my intention. As you can see on the screen, it was a nice distance that I set. It's actually pretty close to what the aircraft has calculated as the top of descent. Now I can go in and say I want to make a radial, and that could be not limited to distance as such. As you can see, go down here and say we need a radial of 200 degrees. I can set that, and then you would actually have an unlimited radial. If I of course go in and set it to just like the other, you can see that I can edit that just as before, 80. Okay, you can't do it that way. Some reason here. Let's set it up here. Because should be able to do it, and you are. There we go. Let it actually tells us the radial 200. Not sure why it actually crosses, because in reality else it makes no sense to actually set a distance or such. Of course you have the difference of the main line, however. But I could be wrong here, and I am. But now we have two lines, one at 60 and 80, so you can see it's closer to the 60 that it wants us to start our descent. And then you can do as Jan he instructed, that you could go in and say, well, you need a radial of 290 degrees. Then you can see, then you could go into sectors and say, in this sector here we need to be at least at 5,000 feet or something like that, as he mentioned it. But it could be used for other aspects, of course, as well. And I forgot to reset the barometer, as well as going to the VNav. You can see it would start its acceleration when we actually raises the flaps. That was me that forgot about the flaps, I apologize. And that's why I say I have so much to say that I focus so much on it, and then I forget the other things. And that's why I'm really thinking about how can I make videos as informative as possible and as good as possible. Because I got a lot of knowledge in the operation of the aircraft and such. And know some of the things that you can use. Also with the knowledge that in reality we often do not fly the whole route. There are things that we don't do. In reality, the air traffic controller is there to actually try to make the flight path we are flying along as short as possible to get us as quick as possible to our destination. There are some quirkiness here and there, as you can see. Okay, but that's how it actually is. And one thing that is handy, you can say, in the Boeing compared to Airbus is actually it has some features. In the Airbus, so far I haven't found an option like in the Boeing. In the Boeing, you actually has the ability to, now that you get up to 25 feet, I can set a value of the autopilot, and then the aircraft would descend to that value, except from if it has a restriction from the FMS whenever it is VNav. So that's pretty unique, you can say, because in here we can have two input sources. You can have the autopilot, and as long as there is no restrictions and such, the aircraft will not descend. And that's basically what is nice about the aircraft, because in reality now we are at 20,000 feet. I can just say, well, we should be landing, or we should descend to around 2,000 feet. However, the aircraft is not doing that. it is first doing it when it reaches the top of the center. And what is even more nice here is that the aircraft would use the restrictions of the FMS. So the aircraft would go down to an altitude, but not below, and that's very nice, because then you actually practically don't have to do a lot. Of course, in reality, air traffic controllers give you steps on the path here and there, but in reality, you could just do as I'm doing here, and I know I do that a lot of. I'm doing it a lot, I should say, when I'm doing those videos here, and in general I am doing that because I don't have air traffic control to give me information. But what is also nice to know here is that even though when you take the information that I just gave you about the that I could just set an altitude and then the aircraft would only descend when the FMS actually has an altitude as target, and not get below that target. So even though I actually set up an altitude restriction, I could actually get the aircraft to maintain that altitude, even though the autopilot is set to 2,000 feet. The aircraft will not get down to that altitude. But again, as a safety, you can say, when you go the opposite way, if the aircraft was set to 1,000 feet and I only set the autopilot to 2,000 feet, the aircraft would not go below the 2,000 feet. So it's nice that if it goes in one direction, the aircraft would follow what the FMC says and ignores my lowest value. But again, if I has a higher value in the autopilot system, it would not follow the FMC. Then it actually would ignore that and continue down to the 2,000 feet, even though it's programmed. So there are safety in there as well. That was actually what I wanted to get to. And that's where I feel that Boeing is a bit clever than Airbus from a design point. I know that some said, well, in the Airbus I can adjust at which speed I want to go down and that. But that's what we got level change for. Or if you are flying the 737NG, you actually have this, if it's speed units, then you can actually set the speed here just like you could do in the Airbus, where you know that you can pull and you can push. It's just like, well, I want something different. But even though it's using the VNAV, you can still do that in the Boeing as well. You just have to press that little button, and then it will actually work. I even mean that it has an alt or something like that. I can't remember. I had the GoFly hardware, and I remember there were 2 buttons, but often it's only the speed that works. The altitude I haven't seen in operation, I have to admit. And just like you had from the Airbus, the small target, you also have a reference here. If you are too high or too low, it show that. And right now we are more or less right on the path. So it's just like following, like looking at puppy lights. Here you just have the reference of how far it actually is. So it actually tells us if we are above or below or whatever we are doing. But again, you can say that there isn't a lot different into it, other than right now it is using the dev, and I could press a button and then I could actually adjust the airspeed. I can do that in the FMS, of course, but the other way you can do it just in seconds. You can make an adjustment, also if it isn't a constant restriction or whatever it could be, the aircraft controller would give you. But I really hope that you learn something from my video here. It really is my main focus here, because I've been flying 737 a lot, and yes, I can't hide that I really like the 737. It has a nice spot in my heart. It really has a... It's not that I don't want to fly the Airbus. It's like some pilots just, well, I'm flying the Boeing Airbus, so it's just crap, and the opposite way around. However, in real aviation, it's a bit the same, that sometimes pilots do not know a lot about the other aircraft, even though they might have followed it a bit. But it's not that they say it's not a great aircraft, because I actually been talking to real-world pilots, and there are pilots that actually say, well, I don't think that, even though Boeing had the issues with the 737-8 MAX, an Airbus pilot actually said, well, he actually thought or think that it actually is a great aircraft, and that's also shown by it's just a modification of the original 737 that we know it has a long history. So even though it has its issues, those pilots actually hope that they will get sold quickly and returns to service, because they also think it's a great aircraft. It's just that it was not the option they had when they actually start their flying. And that's how it is. Sometimes you just have to say, yeah, okay, I can get a job in this airline. I just have to say, I have to say I'm flying a Boeing, even though I like an Airbus more, but that's how it is. And in reality, they all have their unique features and things. Now you can see the speed restriction. It seems that descent speed restriction is not set. You can enter that by now, you can see, but do note that it might have an effect on the aircraft. Almost see unable. That's actually what it says right now. What I can do in this case is I could switch off the VNAV and then enter a new airspeed, and the aircraft will try to do so. And I would of course need a bit of speed brakes here in order to achieve what we would need to in order to slow down. But right now we are flying like a bullet. Maybe to level change instead, so we'll stop our rapid airspeed here. However, I actually feel that we are descending well, as we still have some time until we actually are over land. As you can see, we are still out here over the water, but it is a short approach here as we're coming in for the Aalborg station. Then if we want to make a better approach angle, air traffic controller could tell us to make a right-hand turn here. One thing you have to note here, and that's very nice about this 737 here, and you got it in the Airbus as well. It is the inner knob here, this one. It actually tells the aircraft how much it's capable of turning. So now it is down to 10 degrees. Back it up. Hit the inner knob again. Seems to be a little problem, but actually getting to that knob. It actually is the button that could be used when you're actually having your meal, and it's very nice to have, because if you're using it, you are able to control how much of a bank, you can say, that the aircraft can use. It's 30 degrees when it's normal, and then you can set it down to around 10 degrees, so the aircraft would make a lot slower turn. And that's nice when you are sitting with your coffee. Then it's not nice that you are turning too much. So that's a unique feature, and the Airbus has it as well. And of course, it is required if you want smooth operation. Else you would have to manually slowly make the adjustments from time to time, and that might not be that nice. Okay, and now we are coming up here for the approach. We can arm the approach if we would like. However, we also know that we have to slow down here, so we slow it down as well as trying to get ready for getting some flaps out. What I was wanting to say here is that the best interception angle is about 35 to 45 degrees from what I remember. That's the best interception angle of an ILS, or in general any VR station and such. You can set it for the VR lock, but you can also arm the approach. Just note that to make use of the approach we need to set it on both sides. So I have to set it up here in order to get it working. The approach feature here in the aircraft, and now the aircraft is actually down, so it actually accelerates. However, we just need to arm the speed brakes here. If I can get it to, yeah, it's almost there. Okay, let's get up here, back down again, I guess, here to the main panel, and set the co-pilot's frequency for the same as the captain's on 109.9. There we go. Because now we can do a dual approach, a dual ILS approach. Else we could get into problems when we try to get it working here. Let's try to help the aircraft. onto its path here to intercept the localizer, as well as slowing down the aircraft. Here, getting some flaps in. Sorry, flaps out, I should say, as we're extending the flaps. And now the aircraft just waits till it is aligned to the flight director. Switch on both the captains and the co-pilots all to pilot now, as that will make it more accurate. But in reality, it should be capable of doing a single side. I mean, if you only set the pilot side for the approach, it should be capable. It's just that, I mean, it's the accuracy that is less when you are doing such. And now it should actually capture the islands pretty soon, because as you can see down here, we are passing the line. We can switch over to the islands here, and it captured it there. And then we can start our slowdown process here. 160 knots. And as you can see, and now it wants us to put the landing gear down. It seems that the approach, I don't know why. You can see it switches it off again. Not sure why the aircraft, it just seems that don't like the ILSs. And I remember that same issue from the past. That's one of the main concerns I have. I can't remember if it's because the developer has made a change to the ILS, because it is actually set. Now I try to set it again. Because in reality, the aircraft should be pretty much capable of doing it, but it seems that had a wrong value here. I can cross-check that here in the 163. That's actually what is set. Oh, I guess that I have forgotten that. As there is there an option in the FMS system? I would have to check that when we have landed, and then I would try to see if it has an option, like is it in the 737? Because I can't remember if there was something you could do and then it would be more accurate.
400.
Oh, it was just because of the wrong course there. I have to investigate that. And I apologize because it is quite a long time since I actually flight the aircraft. It really is. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah. And that was pretty much the flight for now, because I can't get back to the nose tiller due to the issue here that I don't have the option to enable the script. So that's something that I probably should be working on improving. So it was it for today. I hope you enjoyed the flight and you hopefully learned something from it. What I was meaning is that I was a bit unsure about if we actually had some options here, but it doesn't seem that we have that. But that the frequency seems not to be right. One thing was that it was wrong from my side. However, you can see the aircraft is not giving the same information as the simulator, because I said tune nav1, would also say ILS approach, then it would turn me on to the approach. But by tuning this, it would be setting, as you can see, it sets the nav frequency. However, if you actually looked at the information on the display during the approach, it was 263 as far as I remember, the course track as the information from the nav data, I guess, of the aircraft. However, the simulator actually tells it something different. And I remember that in the beginning that we had issues in X-Plane 10 as well, that the aircraft was off the center line because we had different informations. However, it is set right, it works out of the box. So don't worry about the approach. I'll probably do a video hereafter where I actually demonstrate that it actually is working pretty fine, just to make that. But again, I would not promise too much because it is down to how much time that I got. But thank you for watching and hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.